Boom. Thank you all very much for the awesome introductions. We have a wonderful workshop today, the marketing pathways. Kaylee, why don't you take the introduction away?
Right. So again, I'm Kaylee, and Alex Fakeri, who is the CEO of MOJO Creative Digital, will be speaking today. I'm super excited for those of you that I know, for you to be able to, hear his expertise. We do everything we do is custom, from website applications, branding, video productions, as well. Not only assets for your business, but we also do lead advertising. We can definitely manage that. Geofencing, native advertising, pay-per-click, search engine optimization, and tons of other things. So Alex is just going to give you some insight on some of the pathways and what you should be doing during this time. Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Kaylee, very much. And it's interesting. I'll say to be here today because I'm excited because Kaylee is always talking about you guys, and she's saying you definitely got to join in there. The problem is I'm usually just starting to open my eyes around 8:30, so it's kind of it's one of those things that I have been awakened, and so I might have to join in here a little bit more frequently. But thank you very much for having me today. So recently, there's been a lot. John and I have been working, doing some presentations together and having some great collaborations. And John, I want to thank you for kind of inviting me out here to kind of join in today and talk about, the marketing pathways. So I like to, and I don't know how these typically go, but I like to make sure that questions are answered at all times. So I want to encourage you guys to, as I'm presenting, if you have anything, please, Kaylee, keep an eye out for me. Kick me if somebody's asking a question. I'd love to hear them as I go along. I have some stuff to share with you on screen in just a moment, but I want to kind of first start out by telling you, in the least boastful way possible, but more insightful, is that when I started this business in 2004, so it's almost been 16 years come August, and for us, that's been a very enlightening amount of experience. It's kind of allowed us to capture more than what we originally intended. When I started this business, I wanted to provide the most innovative and creative ways possible to kind of help market businesses. Well, through that goal of mine and kind of pursuing that goal, I ran into so many different businesses, whether they're doing aviation, they're doing healthcare. We had one client that would paint 747s for private owners. And then we had people that would sell pallets full of bolts and nuts for bridge construction. So we've seen so many different industries, but there have been some really common issues that many businesses face. And that's been what's been so enlightening for us and has allowed us to kind of help create, this document, which are what we're talking about today, is marketing pathways. And when I talk to people a lot, they're asking, well, what is the marketing pathways? And it's really this, and I don't know if you caught any of John and I's conversations with Ann Brennan or any of the other groups that are out there, but the marketing pathways is a document that talks about expectations. How many of you, well, it's going to be hard for you to answer, but I'm sure many of you that have been out there have been running your business for a while, or you've been involved in other businesses, and at the end of the day, you are solicited for every type of advertising out there. You name it, it's out there. And for all intents and purposes, some may work and a lot of them may not. But the biggest problem that most businesses fall is that they sign up for something with this half-butt attempt to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I've got a few extra dollars in my pocket, and I better put something out there because I'm not putting anything. So they'll buy a spot on Comcast Spotlight, or they'll, run a series of postcards or mailers, or they'll do something that's, seemingly like a first initiative and attempt. And, and that I always have to say, I don't want to, say something that's contradictory, but I definitely say it is important to market, but it's really kind of important to understand what you're going to get out of it. There's so many companies out there selling you a solution, and they'll say, you'll get more leads, you'll get more of this, you'll get more clicks, right? But how many clicks do you get now? What does your traffic look like right now? All of the advertising that you're currently doing is giving you what result, right? And so before you start adding something new in there and saying, okay, am I getting more business? It's really important to understand the expectations of marketing. So as if it's okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share something here on screen. John, am I good to do that here? Actually, I should have probably asked you first. But
No, absolutely.
okay, great. All right. All right. So from a quick glimpse, and I'll explain it in a minute, this is called the marketing pathways. Now, the idea of this, and I will dig into it here, is that for most of you, majority of your business is through sales and referrals, right? And that's something that doesn't change. That's where you'll get a lot of business. However, every day your business is in existence, you're making a decision to either market offline or online, right? You are either going to get a postcard or run a banner ad or build a website or do something on social media. So the problem is that there's so many different opportunities. This graphic here represents a symbolic reference, really, because we know there's more than Instagram and Snapchat. We have things like TikTok and we have electronic billboards and some of the things that aren't representative here. But the idea is what I'm sharing with you is the fundamental concept of that we need you as business owners for yourselves primarily, but even as marketers, if we work with you or you're trying to figure out how do I get out there, is to understand what you're going to get when you take a step. So everybody going along so far? Everybody good? Any questions before I dig in?
Doing good, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so let's dig in. So let's talk about offline marketing. So if a business says, I need to do some business marketing around my neighborhood, that might take the form of, let's say, a simple business card. It might take the form of a magazine, or we talk about brand. It could be promotional items. It could be putting a billboard up. But there's also a number of other tools. But what these items fall into, okay, right here as you see, are called static because they're static in nature. All right, because you create it and then you can't do much with it, right? It's there, it's up and running. But primarily it's for brand awareness. And so that means if I do a radio ad, I might be able to convince somebody to go to a website, put in a particular coupon code or something along those lines. But at the end of the day, that means of advertising is brand awareness, okay? Now, as you look at each one of these sections, you have other sections, things that fall into newspapers, direct mail, billboards, events. And these things are passive in nature, okay, because a billboard is passive in nature. It's static, typically. Now they're digital billboards. But it's also more focused on lead generation. So if I put something in a newspaper, it is brand awareness, but I can actually put my hands on it. I can go ahead and do something with it. Or if I go to an event like this, it's lead generating possibilities here that are happening right now. But typically they're very passive because they're relationship building, right? You're putting your footprint out there for people to be aware of. There are such, interactions, and we generally reference coupons and inserts, but this can take many different forms. Then when you start talking about online, what should my expectations be for online marketing? And we group these up in a couple different ways, okay? We have things that are passive, yet dynamic, and they follow, like, for example, a press release, right? It gets out there, it's some brand awareness, let people know what's going on, and you can certainly click on it, and it's dynamic, meaning you can change it, right? So a press release goes out there, you can change it. This starts to take form in email and search engines, Groupons. And Groupons is, for example, outdated and practically non-existent, but the point is solutions like that are dynamic. Then you have things that are viral, okay, and they're dynamic and they generate leads. So a lot of our social media advertising that's out there nowadays, you can change on the fly, you can keep the messages updated, and you can certainly generate leads from all of it, all right? And then lastly here, you have another category of advertising that falls underneath that targeted lead generation. Now, so this has changed a little bit since this graphic was put together. So originally it was Google, Bing, and Yahoo that are really sending paid and organic results out there. But now this is also taking place here with Facebook, Pinterest, again, TikTok's another growing one. or growing. It's massive at this point. But there are a lot of different advertising opportunities, paid and unpaid, in a lot of these other solutions. But again, these items are very targeted. Now, that's the idea of what this diagram represents. Now, how does it work? So the idea is that when we talk with a business, we're trying to say, do you have, let's say, a marketing plan? Do you have a goal? And without going too deep into the weeds on a marketing plan, once you as an organization have determined this is the path I want to take, I know my why, I know my how, and then you've got to start executing these things. And so in some previous discussions for some of our other events, like our Hooked events, Ann's event, or even this event, when we talk about taking the opportunity to get awareness out there and get the message out there, we need to start coming up with a plan and leverage these tools. So we've come up with 10 starter questions, and I'm going to look at these here and go over them with you. First and foremost, when you start looking into the marketing pathways, and as a business, you say, if I want to go down this path of marketing, I need to know, what is my objective? So number one, determine your objective. Like, what is it that you hope to get out of it? If I'm going to run a radio ad or something on Sirius or any of the different dynamic radio stations that are out there, or blogs or anything like that, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And this seems like it's one of those things that you should really know, but you shouldn't even have to answer. But I guarantee you a lot of businesses don't answer this question. What is it that you want out of it? Next is select the pathways that your audience uses. Okay. And this is one of the most important pieces. When you look at these pathways that are in front of you, where are your customers? Okay. Now I'll save everybody a bunch of time right now. There's a customer for each one of you behind every single one of these pathways, behind every single one of them. The problem is, as businesses, we don't know which one of these is going to turn in the biggest result. And if I'm investing that money, what am I going to get out of it, right? This goes back to that question. So I know for a fact, if MOJO is marketing websites, videos, logos, whatever we're promoting, I could do it on the radio, I could do it in blog. I have, over our years of experience, received a lead from almost, with the exception of TV, everything from every one of these mediums I've received a lead from. Some of them I get a lot, but at the end of the day is which is going to be the best return, which talks about the next item. Determine the cost of ROI on each outlet, okay? This is a very difficult thing, and for some businesses, they don't know what the ROI is because they don't either know the cost, they don't know how to price it, they don't know what's competitive. And so this is like something what Kaylee would do, or I would do. We would kind of help you determine where you're going to best base your market and how you can determine the best ROI out of each one of these channels. And I try to watch your time here. So if we can get some time, I'll dig into some of these a little bit closer. Next, you need to determine the conversion costs for your services regardless of the outlet. I want to give you an example. I know for MOJO, if I was going to advertise on social media, my typical conversion costs are going to be around $400 per lead, okay? That means amount of time I take to talk to the person, the amount of paperwork that I have to draw up, the proposals, the number of banner ads that I get, the number of click-throughs that I get, whether I'm setting up a Facebook ad or what have you, or if I'm doing a landing page or an email blast. I know that because what my average sale is, I know what my conversion costs are. Now, if you look at a siding company, their conversion costs might be around $325 or $275, which is pretty. Some companies, their conversion costs are as low as $15, right? But they determine that based upon how many leads they get, they work their numbers. So you really need to figure out what is your ROI for your services regardless of what you do, because that's going to help you make the best decision on which marketing pathway to take. It seems logical, right? You don't want to just take it because somebody offers it to you. And I do want to say that I mentioned the Groupons, I mentioned the coupons on the back of the register receipts that have your logo on them, and I mentioned Comcast is because so many businesses are inundated with these solutions, and they take that shotgun approach to marketing and they get a bad result. and they don't know what their conversion costs. It seemed like a good deal, too good to pass. And it might have been that great of a deal, but at the end of the day, it might not have been right for you. So know your costs. Next, I always talk to people about leveraging one medium, one pathway against another. And what I mean by that is, if I am, for example, let's say running radio ads, or if I'm running social media, let's say Facebook, Twitter, any of these mediums, I'm running social media ads, I would make sure that the ads that are showing up are serving in the same area my radio ad is in. Okay. And combined with that, I'd also run retargeted banner ads that complemented that geographic area. And then if they were running, those people that went to, let's say, social media or heard the radio, saw the banner ads, I drop a cookie on their machines and try to capture them for the next 60 days. And so I try to leverage one thing against another, but I focus it very tightly. Kaylee and I had ran a campaign, and I'll give you a brief story, for a company I was always in a company. It was a company based out of Israel, and they provide the U.S. with a number of security barriers. And their goal was, they went to the big convention they have in Chicago every year, where all the police commissioners and everybody's there. And they said to us, we're trying to really get more leads. People come to our booth, they're a high ticket item, and they were trying to figure out this year, because they had increased costs with their booth and the trade show that year before the whole COVID pandemic. How do we capture the most with the least amount of investment? But we need to see what we can get out of it. I was like, all right, let's take a look at what we could do. So what we ended up doing for that company was, we casted a geofenced net, if you will, around the proximity of the building, where there were 16,000 people in attendance at this event. And as they walked in, okay, they have their expo hall, and they have the traditional, convention stuff going on. They had their booth, they had people walking around. But what we did is, we dropped this geofence net, and essentially any device that walked into that building, okay, for the next 4 days, we're capturing those devices in real time. And then what we were doing is, we were serving them banner ad displays in 7 different formats, whether it be on their mobile app, their websites that they were visiting, their social media channels that they were visiting. And that ad was very focused to that brand of the event, not the brand of the company, but in the lower part of it had a small little reference to the company. But the big call to action was, go visit us here at this booth. And then when they went to that booth, we had promotional materials in the physical form that they could take with them, with QR codes and all the other calls to action. But all of it led them to this particular landing page. And so we started trying to book events and times. And once that event was over, we turned it to reserve your appointment for our follow-ups in the sessions to come. And all those devices we captured during those 4 days, we actually turned into a different ad set, served the same devices, and 3 additional ones for that household for the next 60 days. And so by all that planning and leveraging one medium, web, physical presence with a flyer, and geo-targeting marketing, we were able to capture them. I think it was upwards of 15 leads. Now, keep in mind, their average sale is $50,000. So for them, that was a phenomenal hit that they were extremely happy about. So anyway, leveraging your different mediums that you have is critically important. Let's look here at these last 6. Any questions about what I've shared so far? No? Okay, great. Next, know where your competitor's advertising, and ask if it makes sense to financially be there as well, okay? Just because everybody's spending their money on, let's say, Facebook ads, not that that's a bad investment, or billboards, does that mean you should be as well? I typically find that you need to be a little creative in your approach. Like, just because they're there, take advantage of some of the greatest opportunities of marketing. I found, for example, I'm going to share you a couple little tidbits I was excited to share with people typically is, we had done some research for a big company called the Green Turtle, and they ended up, this was a couple of years ago, they asked us for some ideas for their March Madness campaign and how they could get people back into the restaurants. And so we looked at all these different things that they used to do, and we came up with some really cool ideas. And one of them was that I was actually able to produce for them 10,000 scratch-off tickets with a custom branded scratch-off ticket with unique prizes behind every single one of the scratch-offs. And at the end of the day, those only cost them $750 to actually have printed. So 10,000 scratch-off tickets. Now, lo and behold, that idea didn't take place. Not because of the idea was bad, but because of the fact that there was a legal issue. But even though that idea wasn't used there, we actually used it for a plumber later on. And so now what we did is we found this great way to advertise that nobody else was. So now, how many plumbers do you know that are sending out scratch-off tickets? It's certainly a memorable item. So think about that, where your competitors are advertising or how they're advertising is just not necessarily a bad thing, but there's certainly a better way to skin that cat. No offense to people who own cats. I'm one of them. But think about your competitors. Next, you want to select, and this is by far the most important thing. If you've ever heard me speak, share with you, select an advertising channel pathway that you can support long-term and frequently. Because the key to marketing is consistency and frequency. I have it here. I have it every time I've shared a message with you. This is the big secret to advertising and marketing is consistency and frequency. So why I say that is because a lot of companies will say, I'll do Comcast. Well, their budget only allows you to run Comcast for 30 days or 1 week. Typically, if you're, let's say, a homeowner, and you're picking siding or windows or roof, that's not a decision you make in a week. That's something that goes on for a very long period of time that you have to till you're ready, unless it's an urgency issue, and then the insurance companies are involved, right? And they're helping you, and you're getting barraged by selections. That's not the time. So think about, what can I support long-term and frequently? Social media is a phenomenal asset to you. It's not right for every business. I want to be clear about that, but it is definitely a very helpful tool for a lot of companies. And there's some other items that are affordable. And while we're talking about the cost of advertising, I want to point out some things to you. If you're not aware of this yet, everything that's in the offline sector, typically when it comes to advertising, is very expensive. You're typically selling high valued, high margin solutions that people they're almost recession proof in some degrees. These are people who need a car, they need a home, they need these certain tangibles. They can't live without them. When you talk about dynamic or online advertising, okay, these things have a lower barrier of entry costs, okay, and you can typically, with all of these, continue marketing on a long-term basis. So think about, if you have a low margin on your product, then you should probably start here until you get enough momentum that you can expand out to any medium. But really, most businesses, we tell them, if your number one concern is leads today, then this is where you need to start. This is where you need to start over here. We tell them to stay on this viral dynamic lead generation side, because you can control your costs, you control the frequency, and control consistency. So this is where we have most people start to focus, and then kind of expand out there, okay, to email and blogging and these other options that are available to you. But getting back to the idea here, you need to be able to support it long-term and frequently. Next, we want to talk about outlets that can change seasonally. Marketing is not a set it and forget it mentality, okay? It is not. And if you're thinking about your business, whether it be virtual or your website virtually, being any different than a retail storefront, then you're sadly mistaken and you're going to fail, okay? Your website is not an electronic vanity plate. It is not a business card. It is for 95% of the consumers, according to Gallup poll, Nielsen Net Ratings, and Forrester Research. All of them tell you that 95% of consumers will go online before picking up the phone or visiting your business. That's a very scary number, right? That is, we all know it, the internet has replaced the yellow pages, but that is the reality of what your customers are experiencing. Granted, again, referrals and relationships are there. But even if you have a referral, what is somebody going to do? I can tell you, for most of you, not just because I'm a technology guru, I've already started going through all of your websites. because I want to know who I'm talking to. Who am I dealing with? What's your reputation? What kind of testimonials do you have? I'm checking Google reviews. I mean, have any of you done those things for businesses or partners or anybody? I'm sure you have. So take a look at understanding that when you talk about an outlet, marketing in general cannot be a set and forget it, because whether you're on social media, whether you're on Google reviews, or any of the different mediums out there, or even the newspapers, and again, none of these are bad. All of them have to be changed seasonally, because certainly your business is seasonal. Most businesses are seasonal to some degree. It varies for every organization, but consider that. Make sure you have your variable costs in your marketing plan to address that as well. Next, you have customers, they're doing two different things. They're either buying value or quantity. Like they're willing to make that investment in that high-end quality product because they value that. Or they're saying, I want the best deal. So you have to understand when you pick your mediums, again, say, okay, what is my customer shopping for? Right? Because when we talk about where the investment is for the marketing side of it, make sure you're picking a channel to give you the right return, to giving you your expectations and making sure they're being met. Lastly, I kind of jumped ahead on this one. Typically, higher cost and volume services are supported with offline marketing. This is typically held true. There's been some new advances in technology that kind of open the door and give you some new opportunities, but that's the general concept of this. Now, this is in its entirety, for the most part, the introductory conversation about marketing pathways. And so again, I use this to help businesses understand this is the beginning of the conversation. This is where you need to start determining how you're going to spend your energy, how you're going to spend that hard-earned money that you're putting into this, okay? And having all the right assets and all the right tools will help you develop the best marketing plan for you. Now, I'm only going to spend 2 minutes, and I want to definitely open up questions, and I don't want to, I didn't, John, I don't know if I'm going too long or talking too much, but I get excited, so just wave me down. But all right, so I'm just going to briefly show you here. So this is a marketing plan, okay? This is one that was actually based off a real company. And what it does is, and we just talked about this the other day online, and you can check this out on our social media channel, going to facebook.com/mojo.biz, or just search Mojo Creative Digital and you'll find us. But we talk about the importance of a marketing plan. And in this marketing plan here, I'm showing you what mine started out with a napkin and kind of just went out over time until I knew what I was looking for and where I saw successes. So this is literally, both of these documents are 16 years of experience. I'm not saying everything's right and it's perfect and it's flawless. What I'm saying is leverage our experience to your benefit. We hope it's helpful. But this marketing plan here really goes over all the different aspects and considerations you should have. And at the end of the day, we have things such as a SWOT analysis. We have what are our objectives, a summary of what our goal is for this said company. And then we talk about their unique selling proposition, their pricing, and their positioning in the market. Do they want to be the tech-savvy company? Do they want to be the value-driven company? And as you go through here, we start talking about what materials will be needed for this campaign. What's the promotions that we'll be offering? And then we start coming up with an online marketing strategy that includes different mediums, virtual showrooms, video, blog, email, social media, and online advertising. And then what we end up doing is start talking about conversions, joint ventures. Can I team up with any other advertisers in this sector? And then as you go through here, we talk about what is retention? What does a transaction look like? And then what we say is, okay, let's look at the financial projections. If I have to develop and build all of these things, what's my cost not only to build it, but what's my year total costs? And then it drills down into saying, okay, here's my marketing budget. And all marketing budgets should have some sort of initial level of effort from the agency and then the media spend afterwards. Now, as you go through this is like, okay, wow, this is a lot. Well, this is what's happening regardless of whether it's written down or not. Our goal is to help document it for you so you have a better understanding. And so that way you can also plan. So you can look quarter by quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, fifth quarter, based upon priorities. As you can see, these yellow, these color-coded bars Here are the immediate things that need to be done in the first phase. The yellow kind of represent, and I apologize, this would normally be a book. Here are the yellow items that follow in secondary, and the blue items, which are the tertiary items that kind of just fall in. And all of this is designed to tell you what your costs are, what MOJO's costs are, and help you make plans. This is a template that we put together for our clients to kind of help them understand this is what they should look at. Now, you probably saw some big numbers on this marketing plan. I want to definitely tell you that all marketing doesn't have to be big dollars. Marketing has to be smart dollars at the right time. So eventually, you will get to where you need to go, but you need to identify where your marketing pathways are. Where do you want to be? And I apologize if I took more time than allotted. I didn't really ask, but I appreciate you guys listening, and I hope I didn't drone on too much. So,
Oh, you did great, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
We usually go until about 1 o'clock. Pablo, what do you think?
You know, I was looking, as I was listening to you, this is a well put together booklet, by the way. One of the best I've seen with the, you know, the concentration of information there from the value proposition. We've talked about that, Lee. There's a lot of things that you've talked about over the last couple of years to the group. One thing that came to mind is, you know, I'm a financial advisor. I'm independent. I'm a one-man shop. I got 3 other advisors that work in as part of my group, but we're all independent. And up until 2 years ago, I didn't even have Facebook. And John, you pressed me really hard. You made the case as to why I needed to have Facebook. I had a LinkedIn page, but it was more of I was using it more like a Facebook page for my peers in the industry. And I started asking questions like, you know, are my peers going to be the people that I'm going to prospect for future business? And the answer was no. So I had to clean all that out and start fresh. But I attended a seminar about 2 years ago. And the gentleman was, the key to your marketing, at least in the beginning, you talked about that consistency, and that's what he said. Post to social media and post often. Be consistent with it. Post at least once or twice a day. Post relevant material. And, you know, that's a way for you to become, to be known as the subject matter expert. So thank you for the presentation. Very relevant. And this, you know, this pandemic has forced all of us to rethink our strategies. So.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Lee, what are your thoughts?
Well, I like the way that I was going to ask Alex to contrast how B2B versus B2C would work in your scheme. That's business to business marketing versus business to consumer. But you kind of you gave us examples really of both types of marketing. So I just really like your schema there, the whole options deal. That's really well laid out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and Alex is also a veteran as well, and he's very organized. So for everything, I mean, not just like the pathways document that you saw, but
everything's organized.
if we do service we provide, we have a specific timeline, so we can focus more on creative instead of what needs to be done. So it's very structured, and it's one of the reasons why I love working here.
That's awesome.
Not to sound like a suck up.
Alex, I will say one thing. I did this in the chat to you, but there's a book that was written some time ago called The Discipline of Market Leaders. And Tracy and Wiersma said, actually, you've got to choose one of 3 paths when you're trying to go after customers. You need to either decide if you're going to be low cost, or if you're going to have the best product or service, or if you're going to offer the best customer intimacy, if you're going to love your customers to death. So if you haven't looked at that book, I'd recommend it to you, because
Thank you.
It's an interesting way to look at how you choose to approach the market.
Yeah.
Karen?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Karen Brand?
Yeah, I did have a question for you. And this is regarding the SEO. you know, it seems to me like a lot of my clients are like, you know, let's be on the first page of Google, you know, and then their budget is like next to nothing.
Yeah.
You know, what are your thoughts on that? You know, because SEO is just constantly changing, and how can small businesses be found when there isn't a huge budget?
Thank you, Karen. That's a fantastic question. And there's the first thing I'll share, and this is a book I shared with somebody yesterday on another presentation, and that was, I think, a helpful book for all of us as business owners to read. Jack Welch's book on winning, which is in that book he talks about being candid. And it was by far, unfortunately, he recently passed back in March, but he was the CEO of GE for a number of years. And that was something, by the way, I just truly has always resonated with me. But I say that because, to your answer, Karen, I'd be candid with them to let them know that SEO might not be an option for them. And for businesses that have that challenge, it's very real. And everybody has it. I've had it. We all go through it. But the answer to your question is, how creative can we be outside of that? If I can't get my site to SEO, right? I've had customers say that I can't SEO because I can't spend, and there's no right or wrong number here. I'm just going to throw out numbers. $500, $1,500, $5,000, $10,000 a month in SEO. I can't spend that. No problem. So, or that shouldn't be something you should be doing then. I would focus it on pay-per-click, shorter time ranges to either get you to be in front of your customer when you need to be, if you can narrow it in on that target customer, or leverage things like Facebook, or some of these other third-party sites and providers, because they're indexed by Google every single day, every single hour, right? They're constantly hit. So if you do a search for your name, what do you see? You see not only your website, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Manta, your Yellow Pages, your YP.com. You see all these different solutions. So I would say it's okay if you don't have a budget of any size for SEO right now. I'd say there's other ways you can start by leveraging the mediums and sites that are out there. So that would be my first recommendation for those clients. But great question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Wow, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. It's coming right up right at 9:02 a.m. So we got to get on with our days. And I just really appreciate you coming by. And Kaylee, thank you for being a member of Networking in Annapolis for years now. And I really appreciate it. And we look forward, Alex, to you coming back in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that'd be great. And if anybody wants, I have this great little article that will totally change your view on marketing. It takes you about a minute and a half to read, but if you message us, I'm more than happy to send off those couple slides. It'll change your perspective on marketing as a whole.
Okay, great.
That's awesome.
Thank you, John.
Thank you all very much for coming out today.
Bye.
We really appreciate it. And we'll see you tomorrow at 11:30 with Ruthie Bowles.
Good job, Alex. Thanks.
Bye.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody.